Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It is Sunday. Yes, it's time for another live stream. I'm a bit confused. I'm looking around. Something feels off. I've just been doing some tests and stuff here. And my bench looks really dark. Let me just go to the overhead a minute. Something is off, and I can't work out why. It's like I've lost a light, but I can't... They're off. They're always off. Something weird is going on. Let me just move that over to there. That's my monitor. Because it does block that light. Something is wrong. I just can't quite work out what it is. But it doesn't matter because hopefully we're streaming. So tonight we're going to decompress. We're going to breathe out. We're going to take stock of where we are after 04. I want to talk about a few things, actually, because I don't want the whole stream to be about 04, because there's a lot of other stuff to talk about as well. But I just want to talk about my thoughts, having spent a little bit of time with it. I want to share with you some of the information that I now have and talk about what's to come this week on a video, just so you know. I want to talk about the wiki, because there is a ridiculous amount of information already up there. And I just want to sort of where this puts us today and what this means now it's here, because obviously we've been talking about this for months, but it's finally here. We're also going to talk about a very, very interesting leak on a Caddx product, which we don't know what it is. There is speculation, there is some info been teased by testers, but we don't really know for sure, but I'm going to share some of my thoughts on that. I'm also just going to share some thoughts on some comments that were made about a comment that I made on Facebook this week about Caddx, and apparently the fact that I want to work with DJI, so I'm saying bad things about Caddx, so we're going to talk about that. My cup of tea's arrived. 1 second. Let me just grab that. As always, timed perfectly. Thank you very much. And then we're going to talk about the news that HD0... Sorry, let me rephrase that. Then we're going to talk about the news that OpenIPC and OpenHD have kissed and made up. They've got back together. They're all happy. They've decided whose home they're going to live in now, an area, and they're working on who's going to have what bedrooms, who's going to have the biggest bedroom in this. But basically, this is really good news for open source FPV. Doesn't really change anything dramatically today, but it's still really good news for open source FPV. And we'll talk about any other nonsense that comes up along the way throughout the stream. And obviously we will answer your questions as we move through. Now, it has been an incredibly busy few days. I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who watched the Friday stream. That video has done insanely well, if I'm honest. It's had like 10,000 views on a 3.5 hour live stream. I can't believe I did a 3.5 hour live stream, but we did, and it's had a lot of views. But I've also had a lot more time after that to get the grips with 04 and the teardowns. And what people don't really understand is when I do a live stream, it actually makes life a little bit harder. It's easier from a content perspective, but it makes life a bit harder from me gathering everything together ready for the wiki, because I've sort of already taken it apart. And what I can't do is stop and take images in the disassembly. So I have to poach stuff from videos and stuff like that. But I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who watched the stream. It really has been great. I also want to say a huge thank you to Grey Arrows Drone Club, who sponsored that stream as well. They've been a massive supporter of the channel. We don't do a lot of sponsors on the channel, but I love Grey Arrows Drone Club for sponsoring us in the way they do, and I just want to say a huge thank you from me to them. We'll put the website up in a minute as well. So I love how you had your tea brought you at the beginning of your live stream. Yeah, what happens is, and I was talking about this week, and I don't think people realize this, and I was talking about this to a friend of mine who is in this world as well, and he was talking to me. And here's the truth. I don't script anything on this channel. Zero. There is not a single sheet of paper that exists for what I'm going to do, what I'm going to talk about, and how I'm going to do it. I don't have a running order. everything I do is off the top of my head. When it comes to a live stream, about when I'm writing up what's going to be in the doc is what I sort of think about we're going to talk about. The way I do things is all week I sort of keep an eye on social media, Facebook, my Discord, and obviously I talk on there, and I see stuff that's interesting and I think, oh, we're going to talk about that on Sunday. And then what happens is about half an hour before the live stream, I sit here running around like a fool trying to find all of those web pages. If it was on Facebook, we're doomed because you'll never find it again anyway. But I then run around like a lunatic. So I don't plan anything. And that stream Friday was quite interesting because we did a 3.5-hour stream, unscripted. And it isn't easy, but it is if you know what you're talking about. But the point I wanted to make is making content, I don't really think about it. I do it all in my head and I sort of have an idea of where I want to go and sort of end up hopefully where I want to be. And one of the funny things is that video that I put out the other day, and someone asked about my brother Martin. For those who didn't see it, I did a bit of a video on the release day, the day before the release day. I did an interview with myself. And I just want to share with you a few things on that because I had a lot of comments on that video. And here is the truth how I did that video. It wasn't scripted. It wasn't written. It wasn't anything. All I did was lay in my head 5 or 6 things I wanted to talk about and try to get it in the right order. And I actually recorded that side first, the answer person first. And when you watch it back, I look insane. I'm going to be honest with you. If I just go to the desktop, that's the wrong desktop. That's good, isn't it? That's not the one I want. We want that desktop. There we go. We want that. We'll come back to what's on the screen in a minute. But when I do these things and I haven't got myself up, NVIDIA broadcast is not on. There we go. See this is what happens. This is how much I prep for a live stream. Where's NVIDIA broadcast? There it is. I'm not in the right place. There we go. So let me just find that video. I'm trying to remember what folder that video stuff ended up in, because I can't actually remember. Let me just look in Resolve because I want to show you guys something, because it's not the hammer. That one there we go. So this will tell me where the files are because I can't remember. We will get there in a second. Here we go. Here we are. So let me open the folder. Open file location. Oh, no, not that one. I want to open that one. And hopefully I can show you this. Oh, it ended up in the TPU folder. There. I knew it ended up somewhere. So when I did this video, and I'm just going to put this up for you. Let me just find the 2 halves. So I was in a black t-shirt to do it, by the look of it. So when you look at this video, and I'm going to put Resolve up on the screen so you guys can see it, and I'm going to show you how this was edited a little bit, because I basically did the one half and I did the other half, and it's actually split down the middle. So if I just disable this top track, right, entirely a second. So if I just disable this top track, there you can see.
And the idea of this,
I haven't disabled all of them.
Video.
Well, that ain't working. Probably this video here. Let me just see if it is. So here it is. So here you can see it. So the way I actually did this, you can disable it by clicking. Yeah, well, I did disable it, but it just didn't want to work. So here you can see, and this is me thinking about what I'm going to do. And I was getting ready. And I was looking at a space that wasn't there and listening to things. See, these are classic example of madness, right?
Thanks for having me.
And I look at myself and say, thanks for having me.
O4 system. Now, this is a bit complex in itself with regards to the name.
So what I did...
O4 is the name of their RF system, but is also going to be the name of this product. You're going to have an O4E unit, and you're going to have an O4 Pro unit. Now, this is the replacement.
And at this point, I'm basically talking to nothing. But what I did was sat here and just thought, I'm looking at this, I had the questions in my head, and what I did the second time was I had the first video playing quietly over here so I could look at the points where I needed to talk in. But the truth is, I didn't script it, I just did it, and it came out really well. It was a bit of a fun one. It was one I wanted to do just to wind things up a little bit because I wasn't involved in the release, so I thought, hey, why not have a bit of fun with it? But it did seem to go down well, so yeah, it's not easy to do talking to yourself. It really isn't, but no. Now we've got everyone in, we should probably talk about O4. And there's a few things I want to talk about on O4. First of all, obviously, it's here. I've been spending loads of time looking at this. I've done a lot of stuff on this already. I've just been doing voltage testing, actually. And I've learned an incredible amount. And this is a really hard product to review. I'm actually really now glad I wasn't involved in the release, because I'd have had to have put... I don't think I could have put a video together that covered everything it needs to do in the amount of time it needs, because there's just too much. And just to give you an example of something I found out not 15 minutes ago, on the light air unit, it has a different power consumption when in 1080p 160 compared to 1080p 100. It draws 100 milliamp more power in 1080p 60 compared to 1080p 100 at 5 volts. Measuring this thing is really hard. You have to go through everything to understand it. There is so many differences between what it does here, what it does there. It'll take months for people to really get to grips with O4 and where it's at. But look, let me share with you a few early thoughts first of all. And I'm going to be crystal clear on something. I honestly think this is one of the best products DJI have released, period, from an FPV perspective. I think DJI have absolutely smashed it out of the park in almost every single way. O4 is near perfect. Not perfect. There are a few little annoyances, but genuinely, this product is near perfect. Yes, you can criticize the camera mount, and I think DJI have been a little bit lazy there, and I do see why they've done what they've done, because I've torn the camera down. And if I just go to the overhead, it's not as simple as saying, why haven't they put the screws in the middle there? Because there is space here. When you look at the teardown, and we will do that in a minute, there is space. But what you can't easily do is put the lens through if you put a screw boss there. So I do understand why DJI did it. What they actually would have had to have done is split this front shell in half, I think, would have been the right thing. I think they'd have had to split it in two halves so it comes together around the lens. Because when you look at the lens, and we will look in the teardown, there is space. There's a lot of space at the side of this lens. There's loads of space there. But you wouldn't be able to get that lens through if that hole was there, if there was a boss inside. So look, I think they could have done more. A 2-part outer lens cover would have solved the problem. 100%. A 2-part lens cover would have solved the problem. If I just try and find the image of the lens, just so you can see it. Let me just get it in the teardowns. O4. Let me just see if I can find the right image of this to show you a sec. There should be one here side on somewhere of the camera. Here we go. So I'm just going to bring this so you guys can see it. So if I go to the desktop here, so this is the camera. So what you can see is here, this area here, you could have had a screw coming into this area. It's really hard here. This is basically tight up against it. See, if you look at this area all here, it's tight up against it. You could have had a screw coming in to this. So if we just do that, and I want to do a markup, we could have had the screw sort of doing that, not quite touching it, or at least the screw boss doing that. And that would have potentially allowed for it. But what you can't do then is your plastic would have probably had to have come to here on the shell anyway to hold it. And what you'd have then had the problem of is the shell doing that, right? Because that's what the shell would have had to have done. And you wouldn't have been able to get the lens through. Even without the thread, you would need material there inside to hold the screw. It's not as simple as, because it's so tight in the frame, the material would have to come in. So ideally, you would have needed to split the front shell in half, is what I would have done overall. What I would have done is split this in half. And I'm sure we will get more on that. You know what I mean? I'm sure someone will create a 3D print. That is the first, probably one criticism. The second criticism from a hardware perspective is the 3.7 volts. But I understand that's very difficult. It isn't as simple as just saying, why didn't they do it? There are other things that on there, you know, the iNav OSD is missing, which is a huge shame. And I think we need to make a lot of noise about that. And the reason we need to make a lot of noise about that is my big concern is that this was somewhat not even mentioned in most of the reviews. As a result of that, DJI will probably think that this isn't important. And as a result of that, will probably sit here and go, why bother wasting the time on it? So actually, we do need to make a lot of noise about the iNav thing. We have to, because if you don't make the noise, DJI won't do anything about it. The risk of saying nothing is it costs dev time. They're not going to do it. So that's where the big risk is if we say nothing. The great thing is it's a software issue. More than anything. It can be done, but it's a bit of a shame. There wasn't plans for ArduPilot support anyway. You can use the Betaflight OSD mode in ArduPilot, but you can't use their own custom OSD. So there's that. But genuinely, the product is exceptionally good. DJI have fixed the low power mode. They have fixed power options. They have added race mode. And I'm actually, like, I haven't tested race mode and we've got to try it in the real world, but race mode is quite interesting. Race mode aligns to the race channels. As I said, they move the video carrier and the goggles carrier onto the same link, and I'll show you that in a minute on the FPV wiki. Yeah, you know, there's a lot here to like. Is it perfect? No. DJI, though, has absolutely given Caddx a problem. And that big problem is Caddx owned the light end market. And whilst this still can't quite do 1S, it's good enough to be able to, with a voltage booster, be able to be used. For those people who don't know, there are voltage boosters available out there. Things like this, right? From Fractal, 5-volt booster, ultra small power voltage booster. You're probably going to see a lot more 1S flight controllers come with one of these built in as well. There'll be some things done to get this to work. As that happened with 03, there'll be stuff. So, you know, you might need something like this. But genuinely, what's not to like? It really is a Halo product. It is pretty much everything we've asked for. Pretty much. You can always criticize, but I think it's hard. Now, obviously, there is a fear undercurrent of people who are unhappy that the V2s don't work with this system, but I will not criticize DJI for that. People have to understand there is a point of no return. So, the V2s are actually the V1 goggles, for starters. The V2s are the V1s with some minor tweaks. So the V2s go back to 2019. So they are a 5-year-old, roughly, goggle. Yes, technically, DJI could add support for 04 because they added support for 03. There is a technical way they could do it. But what you have to understand is the Goggles 2 were a complete rewrite of the FPV system. Goggles 2, Integra, 3 and N3 are basically all based off the same software platform. Hardware differences, but the same software platform. V2s are quite different. A bit of a mess as I understand it. The V2s could, with work they could do it, but you have to understand a few things. Number one, dev time is not free. So for DJI to go back and do it, someone has to pay for that developer time. Is that a week? Is that a month? Is that 3 months? Someone has to pay for it. Problem number two is, even if someone paid for it, DJI agreed, they then have to make sure that it doesn't break anything else. And also, they then have to support what they've done for the next, 1, 2, 3 years. The truth is, if they go back and make the V2s compatible, they risk upsetting the other parts of the system, and then they have to support that. And the truth is, it isn't reasonable to expect it. There is no reasonable way of saying, DJI, you should do this. There was a reasonable expectation that you could get the Vistas and Air units with, say, Goggles 2 and even Goggles 3, because that's slightly different. With regards to those goggles, though, I think it's a fair time to say a line in the sand. And I am sorry to V2 users. It is endgame. It is what it is. We can't go back and look back forever. And DJI will not sell enough Air units to V2 users to make it worth it. It's just not worth it to them, simply because of the cost involved in doing it. Now, in the end, I think DJI have done a really, really good job on 04. I haven't flown it yet. I've been doing all my bench testing. We know what to expect, right? Look, everyone's asking a lot of stuff. What's it like in low light? What's it like in this? What's the image quality? Right, look, this is really simple. Avata 2, Action 4, 04 Pro. They will be within a hair of the same of each other. That's so. So if you're fine with the Action 4 Pro, you'll love 04 Pro. The low light will largely be the same. The light standard is a bit of a mix. It's not quite 03 and it's not quite the Neo. It sits between the two. Yes, I guess the one thing you could be a little bit unhappy about on the light is the field of view of the camera. So it's a smaller field of view on the light camera, 117 degrees versus 130 off the top of my head. It's not quite wide enough for most people who are flying very small aircraft. If you look at it on the overhead, unfortunately though, I don't think there's going to be a way of changing that. If I just show you this camera, that lens is not a lens. It's mounted directly to the PCB. There's going to be no real way of changing this. There really isn't going to be a way of changing this. Unfortunately, it is what it is. That I know there's some people who would like a little bit wider, but it's just... Wide angle adapter on the lens, yeah, potentially something like an additional lens that would do it. Can you see it being used on a Whoop 25 gram? Look, power consumption in my test so far is about 6 to 7 watts at 25 milliwatts, 1080p 100, armed, recording. So about 6 watts. It's drawing about an amp. So, look, there is the digital penalty. That's for sure. And that's not unique to DJI. The digital penalty is it uses a lot of power. That is the word I will be using from now on. The digital penalty is there. I was starting to do some testing on the light earlier. I'll just show you this sheet. This is literally me starting. So you can see the Google sheet here. So look, 25 milliwatts at 5 volt input voltage. I'm testing this at, okay? So at 5 volt input voltage, it's 0.57 of an amp in standby mode, low power mode. Not recording 1080p 100, 0.97, so an amp, within just about an amp. And 1.08 amp recording, or if you want to know it in watts, 2.8 watts, 2.85 watts, sitting 4.85 watts armed in 25 milliwatts, and 5.4. And then if you go up to 700 milliwatts, you're talking about 6.2 watts. So, yeah. Here's what's really interesting, though, and this is a weird one. Look at this. 1080p 60, 5 volts, 25 milliwatts. So, at 1080p 100, it's 0.79 amp. At 25, it's same, but at 1080p 60, it's 108. It's drawing basically 110 milliwatts more power in 1080p 60. Crazy. Wes says it's interesting they changed it back. I think Wes, probably the natural result of manual power selection being there has done it, because you're no longer restricted now. What is different on 04 though is this. 04 is very dynamic in power. Very dynamic in power. And what I mean by that is this. When you arm now in auto in FCC, it stays at 25 milliwatts. It doesn't jump to maximum power like it used to. It stays at 25 milliwatts. So it will only increase the power in auto as it is needed. But what you can do is override that. Now, one thing, Wes, I probably should say is we don't know for sure yet that auto with low power mode off works 100% correct. It definitely increases power. I haven't been able to test auto to maximum power fully because it's so dynamic. What I can tell you is turn off low power mode, set it to 1200 milliwatts on the Pro, and you're getting full power. The manual power definitely works. I guess there is potential for auto mode to not potentially work properly, but I don't see it. The fact that DJI have fixed it, I suspect they've done it. But it's great you've got manual power selection back. I think, you know, and they should put that back on 03. That needs to go to 03. There is so much I really like about it so far. There are some quirks, but it really is hard to criticize DJI. Now, over the last couple of days, I want to show you this. I have put up a huge amount of info on 04 on my FPV wiki, and I'm going to walk through that a little bit because there's stuff here that you probably need to know. On the FPV wiki now, I finally got round to add in the info on the Goggles N3. So all of the info and the teardown images is there for that now. Also, the info is there for the Neo, the teardown images and everything for the Neo. But the big one is 04. If we go to 04 air units, I've now put all the info up on here, but here's where the stuff gets interesting. A lot of this will be covered in a video, but I've put down the weights of the individual boards, the power consumption. So air unit and goggles compatibility is there. Remote controller compatibility is there. Spectator mode compatibility is there. The camera cables, there is differences between the cables. So for instance, the cables on 04 are not the same as the cables on 03. They're not interchangeable. It's actually the same cable as used on the original DJI FPV system. It's also the same connector as used on Caddx Avatar. However, avatar doesn't work. The avatar cable does not work on 03. You cannot use the 03 camera on 04. You cannot use the 04 camera on 03. You cannot use the Pro camera on the light ear unit. You cannot use the light camera on the Pro ear unit, but you can swap the cables between the Pro and the light and the light and the Pro. The cable will swap, the cameras won't. Technically, the Caddx camera cable actually fits, but it doesn't work. I also talk a bit about race mode, and race mode is incredibly interesting. So, for those who don't fully understand, race mode forces you onto race band channel selection, R1 through R8. You have the option of 20 MHz carrier standard, but 40 is optional. It is manual channel selection only, no automatic, and it is fully compliant with race band 1 and 8. And as I predicted, and I have said this on stream, so there is proof I said this, I was expecting DJI to realign the goggles carrier onto the video, and I can confirm they have done that. So in this top image here, you are seeing normal 04 operating mode, video carrier in the middle, goggles carriers jumping around, and below you can see race band. In race mode, race goggles carrier is now a single carrier over the top of the video carrier with the video carrier there. A dramatically cleaner output from it. Completely different, but only in race mode. When you're in normal mode, you go back to, I'm going to take up the whole band because I can mode, basically. Or as I like to refer it, the fuck everyone else mode. But race mode is that. There is no reason I don't see race mode being compatible with lap timers. There's no reason I can see it causing too many issues. Is race mode bandwidth the same as analog channels? No, it's 20 megs or 40 megs. Analog uses a lot less. It's 20 megahertz or 40 megahertz. So the carrier width is 20 megahertz or 40. Analog is far less. Yeah, it definitely is going to be nice and compliant with others. About the only thing I will say is race mode is still dual transmission, so it's not single way. The only thing I have observed, and I will be showing this in the video, is when you power on the VTX, if the goggles are on, and I can also confirm the goggles being on without the VTX do not transmit. The goggles being on without the VTX do not transmit. But when you power the VTX on, there is a very brief sweep across the band. I would not power on around someone. I would just, if they're flying, or at least get some separation. With regards to remote controllers, I'm still doing a bit of testing, but it is, as far as I can tell, following the Avata 2 and everything. So when using the remotes on the original system, the remote communicates with the... So when you use FPV Remote Version 2, the FPV Remote Version 2 communicates with the ear unit. When using goggles 3 or N3, the remote communicates with the goggles. I do just want to check something, though, on it. There is something I spotted which gives me a little bit of doubt on something. So I just need to check it. I haven't done my latency testing yet. That'll take a bit of time. Someone's asked about latency. It'll be a few weeks before I get to it. Ross has already done his own chart. It looks... I expect Ross's to be within error of mine. The numbers look about right when I look at it. Some of his are a little higher than mine were on my earlier tests, but it's a few milliseconds, and there will be differences in how you measure it, differences in sample size. I'm not expecting anything to be greatly different. My numbers might not be identical to Chris's because they shouldn't. Whilst we may test similarly, you know, I come up with my test method, Chris has got his. There will be variance in run-to-run variances. There'll be variance in testing. Chris's numbers looked about right from what I've seen. With regards to RF power level testing, I refuse to do RF power level testing because A, I don't believe it's relevant. B, as I have said many times on the channel, I still do not believe there is any way to actually test a digital FPV system correctly outside of the certified lab environment. As a result of that, any tests that I would do would basically be numbers I've plucked out of the air on the day based on what I've seen. And as a result of that, I'm not willing to do it. I will not publish test results for power testing because they mean absolutely bugger all. Even comparing them between VTXs is complicated because, again, the way these things are tested is not how you receive them. They're tested in a lab, in a specific setup with the antennas included on gear that has a specific test mode. So DJI will force the SDR into like a maximum transmit mode, which you can't do. And they will measure it. And the number they come up with is a calculated number taking into account all of the variables. And just to give you another idea, the official testing has a error rate of plus minus 2.5 dB, which is 3 to 400 milliwatts at 1200 milliwatt, roughly. It's a couple of hundred milliwatt at 1200 milliwatts, and there can be plus minus error rate. If you don't need to worry about RF power. RF power on any of these systems is not important. Worry about actual real world results, not bench test RF power. It means nothing. Now, we've also learned a bit about antennas. People have asked about the antennas. On 04, the antennas are left-hand circular polarized antennas. They are not linear. They are left-hand CPs on the Pro. I think it's a linear on the Lite. But yeah, these are left-handers. So DJI have gone back to left-handers on this. Before anyone says it, no, the goggles are not left-hand circular polarized. No, you are not getting a 3 dB cross-polarization loss. People need to take this, what about the 3 dB of loss on cross-polarization, and bin it and never mention it again in a digital world. Just so you understand, the theoretical 3 dB of loss on a cross-polarized antenna is based on two single antennas in the same plane fixed. You are dealing here with a multi-in, multi-out system with 4 or 6 antennas goggle side, 2 antennas ear side. The cross-polarization loss is not the same as that theoretical 3 dB loss from linear to left or right circular polarized. It's not even worth thinking about. It's a non-issue. It doesn't exist. It needs to never be mentioned again, as far as I'm concerned. Yes, there are ways of getting improvements. The antennas on pretty much most of the digital systems are fine. Antennas are not the problem. Don't worry about it. There is no benefit to using only lefts or only rights. It's just not the same setup as what you would have in the theory. So that needs to bury you down. But yeah, they are left-hand CPs. Also on the wiki, we obviously have, alongside race mode, the FCC hack information. It's exactly the same as ham, no change. And then we've got the internal teardown images. So we've got the 04 Pro images. All of this is now uploaded to the wiki. Quite interesting on the PCB. It is very similar to the Lite. I have a video coming on this where we talk about them after the teardown. Very similar to the Lite. Very similar indeed. But there are differences. But that is the 04 Pro ear unit image. We have the back side of it there as well. So all of this is up. You've got the individual components. So I did get these out after the stream. So you can see the top side of the SD card ribbon board here. And then the bottom side here. Oh, I haven't got the link working on that one. I need to fix that after the stream. But you can see the bottom side of it there. Then you've got the camera cable, power cable, sorry, there as well. Again, all of that's available. And then you've got the housings. I have spotted something that possibly is a little bit of a concern on 04 with regards to crashability. Something to note is your main board, which is the side under that sticker. Let me just peel that off again. Okay, because we need to look at one. And that's the easiest one to do it on. So these two chipsets on the Pro meet the top of this PCB, this casing, okay? There are like 2 feet that stick out to drag the heat away from those chipsets. Those feet are what you see here. So let me just bring up that image. These here, can you see these that stick out there and there? These come out and they sit on top of the chipsets. Now, because they're like these sort of feet that come out, there is a risk in a big crash, because those feet come out that way around the chip and that way around the chip like that. So think of it like my fingers there. There is the risk in a big crash that if this top section was bent in, they would press down on the chipsets and crack the 2 ICs. Now, this isn't what I would class as a design issue. This isn't a design fault. It's just an inherent weakness that I would watch. And what worries me is this is the side that you mount it onto on the frame. So if there was a bit of a bend in there, a pressure on there is risk of cracking those chipsets. My advice with the O4 Pro ear unit is if you are going to bando bash this, soft mount it. Stick it in a bit of TPU, soft maybe mount it on the screws. Do not have this where this has the potential to bend. This case is extremely thin and lightweight and will bend. It is just something to be aware of. I am waiting to see this happen. It's going to happen. It's inevitable, I think. And you can see those feet that stick out there. And they stick up and they're just like 2 legs. And if they do that, it's going to crack the tops of the chipsets. So just be aware of that. It's something I'm going to predict. And let's wait and see if it happens. Obviously, then we've got the inside of the cameras. So you can see there the back of the camera with the MIPI interface and the gyro. And then you've got the side of the camera there. Interesting. All of the cameras have this little interposer board. The Lite and the Pro camera have this little interposer. There's a different connector on the back of the camera. And they're using this little interposer to convert it into the MIPI interface. There's no circuitry on it. Very little circuitry, at least. But, yeah, quite interesting. Now, there is also a closer look at the chipsets. I've also put some weights there of the Pro Ear Unit Lite, because I think the Pro Ear Unit Lite is a very interesting option. Now, just to give you an idea, that Pro Ear Unit PCB weighs less than the Lite Ear Unit, and that's because it doesn't have the USB port on board. 4.84 grams for the Pro Ear Unit on its own. Now, that is obviously without power cable, and that is obviously without SD card. With the power cable, it's 5.38 grams. That image didn't come out very well. Please accept my apologies, but it is 5.38. That is the minimum you need to run it. You don't have to run it with the USB or SD card attached. You can run it without, but the only downside is you wouldn't have DVR. But if you did want to run it naked, 7.1 grams for the Pro. Very, very interesting. It's going to need cooling. It's going to need airflow. But we know it will do it. It'll take some cooling and it'll need a bit of airflow. But it will do it. It will do it. So, really cool to see this as a possibility as well. Someone's asked, compared to the Avata 2 camera module. I don't have a picture of the Avata 2 camera module. If anyone has one, please reach out to me. And then obviously we've got some pictures on you of the Lite as well, and I've uploaded the weights. We can see the Lite without the out that. And then I've put the weights up there for people to see on my scales as well. So I haven't tested it enough on the N3 to give a full view yet. I will be doing that. I'll be doing that. So yeah, look, all of this is up there now. All of this is there. So if you need anything, this is the basics covered. It's on the FPV Wiki. I have updated my Mads Tech chart as well, but it's wrong. I need to get on there and test it, but I have added it onto there as well. But yeah, so look, I think genuinely, and there are very few people who won't believe this, I think DJI have done an outstanding job on 04, and short of there being some crazy issue that we haven't seen, I think it's incredible. I think the design of the board is incredible, and that's what I want to talk about in a separate video. That'll cover the thermals as well. Interestingly, it's not actually the RF chipsets that get the hottest. It's the power regulation. That's what gets the hottest on the board. I will also say, in bench testing, in low power mode, 04 Pro lasts dramatically longer before it overheats. It runs dramatically cooler on the bench. I have confirmed the iNav OSD support doesn't work. I have done that, unfortunately. Sorry about that. I've already confirmed it doesn't work. But yeah, look, I think it's a great time. It really is. iNav has a number of customized OSD elements for iNav that Betaflight doesn't need or have. Look, I'm going to be openly critical here of something. None of this is DJI's fault. Frankly, and I'm going to say this again, and this upsets developers every time, MSP DisplayPort OSD is a freaking mess, and all of the projects need to get together, deal with this, and create an open standard for OSD. The problem today is MSP DisplayPort is a communications protocol, but the OSD elements of it are separate between the projects. Betaflight have theirs, iNav have theirs, ArduPilot have theirs. There is no standard, there is no rule to follow. For someone like DJI, they will not like this. DJI will not want to give anyone access to upload OSD elements, right? That's not what they're going to do. They're never going to want to do that. No, they don't want to do that. Fonts upload, it's a risk area, they won't want to do it. DJI like working within standards, either their own standard or one they can follow. What they need is the three projects to get together. MSP DisplayPort needs to be created as an open source project with the three projects as maintainers. They all then contribute into it, and then there is one OSD system that DJI needs to follow. They can then periodically update it from that one OSD system and remain compliant. The problem today is this. Even if DJI added Betaflight, iNav and ArduPilot, iNav will change something in 3 months and then it needs an update and it's out of date. Betaflight will change something and it's out of date. ArduPilot will change something and it's out of date. And DJI are left picking up the mess. I completely understand why DJI find this difficult, but I still want them to add iNav OSD support. So please do it, DJI. Uploading the fonts would be great, but they will never do it. I just don't see them doing it. Developers of the world. I disagree with Ian. The developers always disagree. It's a fucking mess. It's a mess. It's still a mess. It has been a mess for years. I don't blame DJI. The three projects need to sort it out. And only when they do that, I can see this all getting fixed. And at that point, it will make everyone's life easier. What you can't expect is the big project to do, the big company to do what you want them to do. You have to make life as easy as possible for the big company. You might not like it, you might not want to do it, but the fact is, if you want them to play ball, you need to do it. And that's the problem. And that's the issue. And I've said this for a very long time. And I'll keep saying it. Small companies can do it. The big one is lazy. No, Caddx just worked within the current system. DJI will not, it makes no sense for DJI to sit there and have to deal with 3 separate projects. Caddx can do it because they have to, because they wanted to gain adoption. Just because someone else does it doesn't mean it's the right way of doing it. If you look at like UAV Can, it needs to follow something like that. UAV Can or something along those lines. Create an open source bloody thing, get it in one place, and make their life as easy as possible. And then we will have progress. But look, so that's the OSD. From a DJI perspective, it's happy days, guys. It really, really is happy days. There's... yeah. It's... yeah. What more can we say? It's happy days. So, good. Now, as for the impact this will have on others, and we'll move on to Caddx now. It is complicated. Look, is this a problem for Caddx? Yes. Is this the end of Avatar HD or Walk Snail? No. Okay, look, there's... I think it's very hard for one thing. This does give Caddx a problem. And what it does, truthfully, is mean that Caddx really need to sort their shit out now. Caddx gained a lot of users through 3 things. Number 1, there's loads of people who hate DJI. So that's going to happen. They're going to buy whatever else they have. HD0, Caddx, whatever they want. In the early days, the people who hated DJI went with HD0 because that was the only other option. Today, a lot of people are now choosing a 2-way system. And I have said this a few times. I love HD0. I love Carl. I think it's a great product for the use case. But time has proven, time and time again, people prioritize image quality and link resilience over latency. Latency is not the number 1 factor in digital FPV. If it was, no one would be flying DJI or Caddx. They'd be flying HD0. A cake always looks pretty to make you want to buy it. That's why DJI and Caddx have taken. So 2-way link is predominantly what most people are happy with. Not everyone. Racers especially not happening. HD0 is without doubt the lowest latency digital FPV system on the market. It just is. It's not even open for debate. But image quality wins. With the public, it's proven. 2 systems couldn't survive if it didn't. Where Caddx then won was options, camera options, VTX options. So, smaller VTXs, smaller cameras, bigger VTXs, bigger cameras, higher output powers. You've got the GT at 2 watts. You've got the Moonlight with the DVR to sort of compete with O3. You've got the race VTXs. You've got the nano cameras, the small cameras. You've got the gimbals now. So where Caddx have benefited is building a big ecosystem. They also added HDMI output. They added HDMI input. They added analog input. They are doing the bits that DJI wouldn't do. Now, DJI have made a big step into the lightweight market. They're basically now on par with Caddx on lightweight and HD0. It's so close now. I'm not saying it's perfect for 1S because it isn't, but it's close enough for 99% of people. That now means that Caddx have lost one of their biggest advantages. The Caddx absolutely still have more camera choice. They absolutely still have HDMI in, HDMI out. They absolutely still have analog. But here's the problem. And this is where people will be critical of me, but I am saying this as an honest belief. Caddx have done a lot not particularly great. They've done a lot okay. They've done some well, but they've not done everything great. People put up with that, though, for the benefit of small and lightweight. Now I guess we will see how important HDMI and a lot more camera choices is to people. That's what I will now guess what we see. If HDMI and camera choices and analog input is really important to people, Caddx will continue to win more people over. Or was the real big advantage small and lightweight? And we don't know. Time will tell on this. Time will tell to see what they do. But whilst Caddx have flooded the market with product, and look, if you just think how many VTXs there's been, it's ridiculous. They win in OSD as well. But Betaflight doesn't matter. Only iNav. So yeah, yuck. And I'm not saying Caddx don't have advantages, but DJI have just pulled one right out. And that now is going to be interesting to see. Caddx now really need to get their crap in order. And look, they do a lot good. I like the Avatar system. I'll be honest, I've flown it today. Fucking, it's not even close to 03 or 04 in image quality when you really get down to it. And I'll talk about flying it today a bit. It ain't close. It really isn't. It's great for low light FPV, and that's another area where Caddx will win, because remember, and Wes just made another good point. Caddx tend to use CCTV-based sensors, with DJI use filming-based sensors. So you get Caddx will have the low light, DJI won't. That's just a fact. So there are issues. There are issues. DJI are not using a low light sensor. You've got to take into account, DJI use camera film-based sensors. Sensors designed to give you great image quality, but those sensors don't have ultra-low light. DJI broadcasts your serial number, Aeroscope. Yeah, but a serial number of an ear unit doesn't do anything. A serial number of a goggle doesn't do anything. Also, 03 and 04 03 doesn't transmit Aeroscope, nor does DJI Digital FPV. Just to be crystal clear. 03 does not. Digital FPV does not. I've not tested 04. 03 does not use Aeroscope. That was tested. So Caddx still have some wins. You know, they use their low light CCTV cameras, and some of them are absolutely bloody great as well. You know, one of the best low light cameras was the Caddx Polar for DJI FPV. That was one of the best. But you give it one and gain another. Those other camera sensors are not great image recording sensors. They don't have great image reproduction. They don't have great color reproduction. So, yeah, 03, just on Aeroscope, just to be crystal clear, 03 and the original FPV system do not use Aeroscope. This was all tested. It's been the case for years. I can't comment on 04, we'll have to check it. But as far as I don't expect that to have changed. Only DJI consumer drones use Aeroscope. FPV, 100% did not. That's not thought, that was tested. I've seen the results from an Aeroscope on that. It didn't exist to it. But yeah, so look, Caddx isn't over. We'll move on to the Caddx leaks in a second. Help, my friend's running 04 light and it's locked to 16 megabits. He seems to think because of the channel he's choosing. No, he will have on. Tell him to turn off broadcast mode. He's got broadcast mode turned on in transmission settings for the spectator goggles. Tell him to turn off broadcast mode. Caddx has some work to do now. Okay? Caddx has some work to do. Caddx is technically cheaper. Yeah, it is. They are still a bit cheaper. The question is, no range limit on Caddx as well. Yes, Wes mentioned it and I forgot to follow up on it. Absolutely. We don't know what the range limit is yet on 04. We're going to assume it's 24 kilometers. It could be less. We don't know. But look, range limit is a very small market. Unless there's the bearded people who like to fly long range. Range limit is very limited market. Pretty much very few need to fly beyond 24 kilometers. Very few. Interesting. What will be seeing how people react. Siati was talking tonight on his stream, and he was talking about the reliability of Caddx has been a real big problem for him, and I know that is the case for many people, especially on the 1S board. The 1S board has not been good from a reliability perspective. So Caddx have some work to do. The truth is, they have some work to do. Goggles X is a good product. But they've got to stop this thing. Now, there's been a couple of comments on Facebook and on address before we talk about the Caddx rumours that I am beating down on Caddx because I want DJI to work. And I have to admit something to you all. It is absolutely the case that I have not treated Caddx in the same way as I have treated DJI. I have not told Caddx to go fuck themselves on stream. I have not told Caddx... I have not run a banner saying Caddx in the bottom of the stream. I have not told Caddx that they can take a Ronin gimbal and shove it up their arse sideways. So it is absolutely the case that I have not treated Caddx fairly on this channel compared to DJI. So my commitment to you all... Oh, and I also didn't look at the camera and say, go yourself with the finger to Caddx live on here as well. So it is the case that I haven't treated Caddx fairly, and I'm going to commit to you all to do that moving forward. So not only am I going to tell DJI to go fuck themselves, Caddx, you can go fuck yourself as well, as can everyone else. And I'm going to treat all of them with the same level of disdain and hate that apparently I treat companies with. However, look, let me be clear here on something, right? Because I say some of this in jest. I don't care about DJI or Caddx. People seem to think I have this huge plan. My job is this, right? There are people on the Caddx Discord, there are people on the Caddx forum, there are people on the Caddx Facebook groups, people on the DJI forums who get free gear from Caddx for testing. There are people who buy gear. There are people who have purchase bias. I am very lucky that I get to have a lot of stuff for free. That's a reality, okay? I appreciate that. I understand that. But my job isn't to talk for me. My job isn't to talk about those people there. My job is to look at the whole thing and try to find where this brand and this company is, how they're treating their customers, and also have a voice for what I think is right, but also the customers who don't have a YouTube platform. So the people who don't have the voice to make an impact. And sometimes I have to sit here and say, no, they're being wrong, they're being dickheads, they're not doing this properly, they need to improve. Because if no one says these things, it will not happen. Anyone who sits here and thinks the best thing you can do is sit and wait and see what happens to see if they do it, you're insane. Companies only react to noise. They only react to mostly bad press. Does that mean at times I'm quite negative? Yeah. As is Gamers Nexus, as is others. That is this channel. I don't hate FPV. I love FPV. I don't hate Caddx. I don't like Caddx. I don't care about the company. I have zero fucks for DJI, Caddx, HD0, the company. I like people. I think Carl is incredible. I like people in businesses. But the brand is not important. The problem is about talking about the problems and getting them fixed. And that sometimes takes me to sit here and say, don't buy it. Just don't buy it until they fix it. Because if you don't, they won't do it. And that's why sometimes I have to say, I have no preference plus or against Caddx DJI as a brand. If anyone follows the mountain bike world, you want to see some of the stuff I've said about DJI and Amflow. It's not pretty. It's really not pretty. I've been talking about that a little bit and warning those guys about the nasty, evil, and frankly deceptive company that DJI can be at times. Because that's true. I deal in truth. I have no personal opinion either way. If someone wants to ask me what I prefer to fly, I will answer it straight away, and it's DJI. It has been DJI since 03's come out. It's nothing to do I don't like with Caddx. I prefer the image quality of DJI. I prefer the compression of DJI. Caddx, I still do... They've never fixed this horrible wave effect in the compression that you get, and it's still there, and it looks a lot like the V1 DJI system. And when you look at it compared to 03 and now 04, you just go, Jesus, what am I looking at? I genuinely prefer the way DJI performs, but that doesn't mean I don't like Caddx. And that doesn't mean I don't like anything else. But when it comes down to it, I have to treat the companies and how they treat their users. And here's the truth on something. Right now, I am unhappy with the way Caddx have treated the community over the launch of the Goggles X and the promises made on a V2 system. I was one of the people who was involved in the launch, and I loved it, and I like working with Caddx. I benefit from working with Caddx because I use their affiliate scheme. If I didn't like them, I could benefit more if I didn't say bad things. But the truth is this. Caddx heavily pushed to all of the KOLs at the point of the goggles release their upgradable V2 system coming in 6 months. Push this in the videos. It was a main talking point that Caddx wanted promoted in the videos for the Goggles X. Now, I was really careful in that, and I think JB was as well, to not push it overly. But here's the truth. People, KOLs have been left in the position, like myself, of users saying to me, I've been asked, did I lie? Did I lie about the V2 system? What did Caddx tell me? How is it that it hasn't come out yet? I think all these guys just sold us this so we'd buy the new goggles. We have been accused of deceiving the community as a result of that. And that is not acceptable. And Caddx have put myself and others in a very difficult position. And that doesn't mean I don't like them anymore. It doesn't mean I won't talk about their products anymore. But here's the truth. At best, they exaggerated what their plans were at the time. At worst, they out and out lied to get people to buy more goggles. And I don't know which one of those two it is. All I know is we still don't have a V2 system. And all I can do is hold them to account on what they've said. And I'm the one that has said, I now personally think it was bullshit. And that's what I've said. I personally think it was BS. I will happily be proved wrong. I will happily talk to Caddx if they want to explain this to me. But I feel that it was intentionally promoted to help sell more goggles. And what's really annoying about this and really frustrating about this is the fact that it was completely unnecessary. The Goggles X had so many new features, the upgradability in V2 system was not ever needed to be said. HDMI in, HDMI out, analog FPV support. That in itself, that's enough. New goggle, HDMI in, HDMI out, analog FPV support. That's it. Just tell us that. Or, and at least add on to that, possible modular design. Something simple. But no, they had to push V2 coming in 6 months. And that has left a sour taste in my mouth and many others. But genuinely, it changes nothing. I still review the products as openly and as professionally as I always have. I still have no issues with Caddx as a brand. I feel I've been put in a bit of a difficult position, but that is what it is. And it doesn't change anything that happens in the future. If they release a new set of goggles in the future, if they want to send them to me, I will give them the best review I can, in the sense of I'll put as much time into it as I can. You know, I put in, I think I said it was 40 or 50 hours into the Goggles X review, and I would do that on another set of goggles tomorrow. And I'm not paid for that. That's just to do on the channel. But I ain't forgetting what was said. And I ain't staying quiet about what was said. And I ain't going to sit here and go, oh, they probably didn't mean it. As far as I'm concerned, they said it. It's their job to deliver or tell us why not. And that is where my stance is. So if people think I hate Caddx, that's entirely on them. I don't. I am agnostic at best about the brand. What I am is a person who's in a position who was told something and was asked to market something based on it, and now that hasn't happened. But that doesn't mean I'm going to forget about it. I will continue to bring up about the goggles. I will continue to bring up about the issues because that's my job. So that's where I stand. Now, whilst we're talking about Caddx, there is some good news because they are working on something, and it is good news depending on which side of the fence you're on. And what I mean by that is this. So there's been a leaked image this week of this, which is a new VTX alongside an original VTX. Now, we have been told by leakers, testers, whatever we want to call it, it is not the Avatar system, but it is not OpenIPC. Whilst there's a lot of people who thinks it looks like OpenIPC, it is not OpenIPC, but it is something different that we haven't seen before. Now, the image is actually quite interesting when you look at it, because what you can see is we've got a camera interface over here. You've got a main chipset here. What is very noticeable on this from me is a few things, okay? So from a technical perspective, we don't have an RF multiplexer chip. So on Avatar, you have the main chipset, which is here. And on the back side of it, you have an RF mux chip. There isn't one there. That chip would have to be quite close to the PAs. You've got what looks to be probably voltage regulation. That's probably a PA. Yes, it is. The antenna blade probably comes in there. This chipset does look quite a lot like the Star SSC338 used in OpenIPC, but it might not be. It could be anything, to be honest. We simply don't know. Apparently, this is something new, but it isn't Avatar HD, but it isn't the V2 system either. Now, the noise seems to be that Caddx want to make something new, digital, cheaper. I don't really know what that is. What I can say is they could make something based on similar hardware. You have to remember, OpenIPC is software, not hardware. The main chipset used in OpenIPC isn't anything specific. It's a very capable video encoder, ISP, and I/O chipset. It's not an RF chipset, it's a video encoder chipset. Think about the chipset used in OpenIPC, a bit like an ARM STM32. You run your software on it, it does what you tell it to do within its I/O capability. So they could use that chipset, but with different software. They could use a different chipset. There are lots of different chipsets out there. We don't know what this is. Looking at this, I think this looks a lot like the Star chipset, but I don't know if it is. I think it's something more basic than Avatar HD. I don't think it's SDR. It's possibly Wi-Fi based. Let's wait and see. It isn't a V2 Avatar system, though. Someone has just said here, Darren Lines, one of the Walk Snail testers, said that Caddx will sell the new VTX as a ready-to-fly kit, including drone goggles and radio, and it'll be a budget HD system. If you want my bets, they will probably use very similar hardware to OpenIPC. But in some form of Wi-Fi. It says Avatar V1 on it. Where are you? That's the original one. This is the new one. Avatar V1 is the original one. This is the new one. My bets, and this is just speculation, no fact. I think it will be some Wi-Fi based thing. Is my bet. Closed IPC. Yeah, I that's what my money would be on, if I'm honest. Rumour of a wide-angle camera. I don't know. I've not heard. Sorry. Look, I don't really get told anything from Caddx. I have to say it's interesting. So I'm going to do two sides to the positive and a negative spin here. I think it's absolutely interesting to see something new come. Another budget option in FPV is great to see. I think there are very few downsides for more budget options for anyone. My complaint, and I am going to lodge my complaint, is that I wish they would stop faffing around with things that are not related, that are not new, and I would wish we would get something on the V2 that they promised. Or if they can't do it, just tell us. But that's me balancing the scales. On the plus side, something new. On the downside, what about the bloody thing you promised 2 years ago and all of the stuff you haven't fixed yet? You know, here's a great example of something Caddx need to fix. JB talked about this on his stream earlier. JB has a Moonlight where he's lost the link cable and he can't update it. That means, and because it has the firmware difference, he can't use it with his goggles. Caddx need to fix that, and they need to fix that now. It is not acceptable that you can't bind something because it needs a firmware update. That needs fixing in goggles firmware, not VTX firmware, goggles firmware. They need to put a new goggle firmware out that works with all of the older firmwares. This break in the binding is absolute bullshit. That needs to be fixed. It's silly stuff like that. And the amount of new user problems that will cause. The goggles are fairly easy to update. The VTX is a bit more challenging, let's be honest. You got to plug in that stupid cable between the boards, and then you got to, you know, they need to fix that. They need to fix it. There are rumours of a wider camera for 04 will be released soon, DJI. I've not heard anything. I don't know anything about a wider camera. I would be very... Look, there's a lot of speculation. I think if there was going to be a wider camera, you'd have seen it by now. Could someone else make a camera that works with it? I tell you what they could do, but the problem is DJI serial number the cameras, so they're going to have to support it. Ian, question, what happens with the RunCam link? This probably stands for the RunCam link, Caddx Vista, and O3. The truth is, I don't know. I have heard O3 is over. I have heard it is the end of O3. I personally think it will be the end of everything before O4. If you want my money. But look, DJI don't announce what they end. They don't put a letter out saying, hey, we're discontinuing this. They do send messages to retailers, and that's where I've got it from. But I suspect this will be the end. Don't they still make drones with O3? Yes, but they are slowly transitioning everything away from it. Repeater testing, Wes. I will talk about that in a minute. Because I did it today. Both OU4 units are out of stock on DJI again. They seem to be selling through. Walk Snail is too similar to the Vista. It is very similar to the Vista. Yeah, look. Well, look, we want to be fair. I hope... Before we talk about the Caddx repeater, I hope Caddx maybe release this new thing, which will be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. And get us an Avatar version 2 so we can then look at it and talk about it and give us something new. I think Caddx have made a very stupid mistake, again, with the talk of the V2, and that mistake was they have used the words double the range, or what was it, twice the range, or 3 times the range, or 4 times the range, did they say? I can't remember what they said. The problem with that is people will think that's a lot further than it already goes. You have to take into account Caddx state the range of the current Avatar HD system as 4 kilometers, not the unlimited range that some people get. 4 kilometers. Caddx saying the new system will get double the range or whatever. That isn't double the range of what the absolute maximum is. That is... The spec is that it's capable from 4 to 8 or 16. If you take 04, DJI say 04 Pro can go 15 kilometers, 04 Lite can go 10 kilometers. Yeah, someone said, sent it 10K at 700. Yeah, but that's not what you're going to get 4 times the range of. That doesn't mean you're going to get 40 kilometers. They're talking about the specification range. And again, it's things like this will probably bite them on the ass. Oh, 404 Pro sold out everywhere. Is this an issue that will be solved later? Yeah, look, it's the first week. Supply will... I was told the light was going to be in low supply. So, yeah, it'll come. So, look, this is interesting. You can't not think it's interesting. From a technical perspective, I'm going to lean my money, purely speculation, on some Wi-Fi based thing, but I could be wrong. Let's wait and see what it really is. Looks nice and small, though. Looks like they've got a stupid connector under the bottom there again. You've got a bind button, which sort of hints that it might be two-way, or at least it needs a binding phrase of some form. Yeah. Definitely looks interesting. Definitely looks interesting. Now, I was asked a question earlier about this. Now, let me just grab it. This is the Caddx Avatar Range Extender. Now, today was the first day that I actually had a dry day where I could go out and test this. So this monstrosity here is Caddx Range Tester, Express ELRS repeater, and a battery. And there's a video coming on this, and the idea of this was for me to be able to test how well the repeater works. Now, this is a very basic test setup. Yes, it might look janky. I wasn't designing it in such a way to be some fucking pretty thing that sits on a table. It was designed to take down the beach and test that it actually works. And we did. And I'm going to show you a little bit about it now. And what I can say is this, from the repeater perspective, I absolutely have no complaints whatsoever. It works as intended. Now, the way I was testing this was with... I'm just going to mute the mic because I'll talk about this. With the fly lens... Sorry, not the fly lens. The GoFilm 20, because it's got small antennas, reduce the power output. I thought it was a better thing to test it with. And then, obviously, we had the unit itself all set up. And the idea what I was going to do was test it around the headlands. So I'll show you now. It's so wet today as well. Honestly, the puddles and water around. So here we have the tripod set up. And the idea of this is obviously we've got the repeater. I had to put some tape on it because the wind, it's quite windy. And the wind kept blowing it round on my tripod because the screw for the tripod mount doesn't go all the way in. We've then got the Express ELRS system, which is the repeater that I built on the channel below. Batteries taped on just to get it all in place. And the idea was to repeat the signal. Now, if I show you around here, the idea is I'm going to stand here and I'm going to fly around this headland, around here and up here. Now, this is all landmass. It's not trees. There's actually a cliff edge all around there. And we do one test first of all without the repeater. We actually do two tests, but we do some tests without the repeater and then I do the test with the repeater. But the idea is fly around up to there and around there, around the corner. Now, just to show this from where I was standing here it's over there, and there's all this rock face here, and the idea is it's not going to go through. There's rock, there's everything. So this, now, I'm just going to say something. This flight is in bloody self-level mode. I can't think of the name of it. It'll come to me in a second. Self-level mode, and I'm going very slowly because my spotter is walking behind the quad. Okay? So it was done in such a way just to show. So this is just a very small move, and the idea is we fly along, right? Let me go to here. Around the corner. Now, this is without the repeater, I will add. Okay? Stabilized. I couldn't think of the word then. As you can see. It's also windy as hell for this quad. Okay? So just bearing in mind. Here, the wind blew it out. As I come round here, the wind took it sideways. But the idea is to come round and move angle mode. That's it. Very slowly up here. I started to see it break down. The wind was taking it. Now I do 2 flights. And you can see we lost signal there. Okay? First flight, we basically got around the corner and we lose signal about there. I do a second flight again now as well, just to show you. But basically, I can't go anywhere up into there at all. Freaking wind today. I wish this wind would go away. Look at the compression on that. But yes, so we get down there. The latency kicked up. So in the end, it was like, no, we're gone. Now, I did do a second test with a bit more power just to see what it was like. And I actually got a bit further up. So just to show you that, I actually get into acro in the end because this does my nutting. What I was having though was my spotter was walking behind the quad, so I didn't want to move very fast. So this is with a bit more power, matched power to the other one. And I got a bit further up, but basically about here it starts to play up. I'm starting to get the latency kick up. And then basically I got to here. I couldn't get anywhere further than here. You see it will basically start to oh no, sorry, that's the repeater. That's the repeater run, that one. Wait a minute. That's the first one. Oh yeah, sorry, I jumped to the repeater one. This is the second run I did. And I could only get to there. So, now we do it with the repeater. And we do a couple of flights with the repeater. So now the repeater is around the corner there. I was just doing some checks to make sure it was actually working. And again, this was the first flight I've ever had with the repeater, okay? So I was being a little bit careful because I didn't know what it was going to do. And in the end, I'll show you it in acro mode. But look, here we've got the repeater. So we're moving. And I just sort of see where we can go. And I can go all the way up without any problems at all. I take it a bit slow just to have a look because I knew it was dropping there earlier. And it was fine. And we were able to keep flying without a problem. And I was going slow because my person was walking behind the quad. Because what I didn't want is it to fall in a puddle either because it's such a small quad. I was then checking the latency. What I'm doing here is just having a feel for how it is. Trying to understand how it looks. But I was able to go right up here. Now, I didn't want to fly up here, right? Because up there is behind the repeater. I didn't want to do that. But I was all the way up. The repeater absolutely works. Now, I drop it into acro mode in a minute, which I'll show you. But what this was more than anything to prove the repeater actually works. What I was trying to do is just move around, just feel what's the latency like, how is the image behaving, how is it, just having a look around. Also just making sure that it's doing exactly what it should. But yeah, so if you think from here, the repeaters through all of those trees. Oh, you can see there the boat. That's the thing of the boat there. So I can absolutely say the repeater works. I think I did a couple of flights. That's the second one. Let me just go to the acro flight. That was the second flight for a test. Where are we on? I'm trying to remember where the acro flight was. I was just moving it around, but what I can say is it absolutely works. This isn't acro. The acro one comes next. But it absolutely works. No, the spotter moved back at this point. The first few times my spotter was following the quad. This time they were keeping an eye out for people. And we move to acro in a second. My risk here is the puddles. My risk here is but look, we can keep it really low and it still works fine. And really, it was to make sure split S I was not risking. We drop into acro mode in a minute. I think I'm still in self level at this point. I think I drop into acro now. Yeah, now I'm in acro. I got fed up at self level mode and then tested it in acro. And again, so I'm pushing it now a bit faster. It does break up in self level mode. In the latency does kick in, but look, I hugged the ground big style the last few times, and it's fine. It's absolutely fine. I did start to feel the latency at times, but it's working fine. It definitely increases latency when the signal gets low. Just trying to get a feel for, what is it doing? What's the latency feel like? What is it behaving like? But yeah, look, it definitely works. I couldn't get anywhere near this. Without the repeater. So from a product perspective, it's thing. I did hear, right? You can see here where I got very close. The latency seemed to spike there for some reason, and I started overcorrecting. Yes, I was using the standard antennas on the goggles. Does the signal always go through the repeater? Yes, it does. Always through the repeater. So just to confirm, I was using the 5.8 gigs antennas on the goggles, which they shouldn't be. They should be 5.2 gigs, but I don't have 5.2 gigs. But yeah, it just works. How would I compare? Look, the latency I need to do latency testing here on the bench. What I will say is this. There were periods where the latency was horrific. That part there, let me just figure out where it was. That part there, the latency spiked like hell. I was going up, right? And what's weird is the image didn't quite break up. I was doing some tests there trying to feel how was it? What was it feeling like? What was it doing? And it was all fine. And then I come up here and I stopped and I sort of moved up here and then I noticed the latency sort of spiked. And next minute it was like, oh, wait a minute. And I was like, oh, I'm overcorrecting here because I couldn't get it. I wasn't within the feel of where it would usually be. I think it easily went up to a few hundred milliseconds at that point for some reason. I don't know why. But I'm also not really clear line of sight there either. That's the part where you almost hit the fence. Yeah, because it was like I was behaving behind. But it works. It absolutely works. It's and again, just to confirm on this flight, this was without it. I was being really careful, right? Because what I didn't want to happen on these first tests was me bin the craft into a water puddle and I couldn't do the final tests. Now, the latency here spikes, as you see. This is without the repeater. And it's like, that's it. Gone. End of. So, I have absolutely proved, without a doubt, that the repeater works. It absolutely works. There's no question about does it do. From that perspective, look, it's going to be really hard to test latency. I can do a bench test of latency. I think it's fair to say there will be a doubling of latency. I think I was discussing this with somebody where you're thinking like there's potentially for a doubling of latency at worst because you're going through two parts of it. But it works. It absolutely works. Who the product is for is another question. Who the product is actually for. What was the repeater output power? It was set to minimum for my tests, not maximum. It was set to the minimum, which was legal in the UK. Moving on. Minimum I was testing on. I could have put it a lot higher. So that's a very good point. Minimum power settings. So ironically, the Caddx repeater can be set on top of a DJI drone to fly non-return missions. Yeah. I need to do the super chats. So, I need to have a look at the super chats. I saw a big one come in earlier from Rabbit Ambulance. My God, that is a name I have not seen for a while. I work for DJI and this is our kickback sponsorship for your eyebrow dye fund. Since apparently one of your viewers earlier chat thought you dyed them. No, I do not dye my eyebrows. My hair's grey, my eyebrows are whatever colour they are. And there is AZ Lone Wolf 81, $5. Thank you for that. Madstech, I'm having an issue with Betaflight set up Lua script on the GX12. It fails after compiling the syntax. I've not tried the Betaflight one. If you're on Discord, come on my Discord. My link's expired apparently. I need to do a new one. Find my Discord, message me, and I'll try it and I'll let you know. What's the highest setting on the repeater? 700 or 1200? I need to check. I think it's setting or 12. Unbelievable, Rabbit Ambulance. Thank you for that. That's incredible, my friend, and I hope you're well. But, look, what I will say on the repeater is this. I think there is a latency penalty, and I'm not convinced it's for quads. Plane users, I think, will be loving this. Quads, less so. It's usable. What I set out to test in this video, I'm not going to sit here and produce a video that shows you flying 200 kilometers, 100 kilometers, all of this distance. I wanted to prove the repeater worked, and that's what I'm going to do in this video. It's down to people to figure out use cases and all of this stuff, but what I wanted to show is, does it work? Because I haven't seen that yet. I haven't seen anyone demonstrate it doing what they said it will do. And that's what I wanted to do. There are some quirks to the behavior. It's like the power settings don't adjust the goggles downlink power. They absolutely adjust the uplink power to the VTX, but they don't up. So, because you got to think about the repeater. You've got 5.2 gigs from the goggles to the repeater. You've then got 5.8 gigs from the repeater to the drone. The power settings on the repeater adjust the power level for the repeater to the drone, but they don't adjust the power level from the repeater back down to the goggles. Just catching down on the chat. I was thinking, if third party made a lens adapter for a wider field of view. Yeah, that's possible. It's just weight, that's the problem. So yeah, it works. It works. The flights are done today. It was bloody windy. So it's the first time I've actually flown in ages because of the wind and rain, and it was so wet. The problem is down the beach, puddle-wise, you just... You know, here's the one I was concerned about, right? Where is it? I think you'll see it in this one. Let me go down here. This is muddy as crap, as you can see the water, right? Wait for it. That one there is asking for me to end up in. How do you bind it? DJI has a repeater for the Enterprise drones. Yes, they do. DJI has a new one, actually. They've just released it. They have an OcuSync repeater, mostly for Flycart, I think it is. I don't know, does it work? Does it work with the Enslon, or is it only Flycart? I've seen it for Flycart. Actually, I've seen it for the... Is it Flycart or the crop sprayer? I can't remember if it's for the Agro or the Flycart, but yes, they do have one for OcuSync. Yeah, that's a loose term for a beach. It's a bit of a... That's a muddy hole, that place. Does it work with a 4T? Oh, very nice. But yeah, it proved it works. The video needs to be finished. Yeah, that's not a beach for some. I do have a lot of sandy beaches around me. That's not one of them. Oh, they have a repeater for the Matrice 4 series. Is that the same one that released last month? Or is it a separate one? Because a new one launched last month. Yeah, because they released an updated version of it a little while ago. Didn't they? I haven't seen any images of the repeater, but I'll have to have a dig into that. No amount of Caddx watts will make it look like 04. Yeah, like power is... Like Caddx have 2 watt on the GT. Which is a lot of power. What's bizarre about the GT is it has 2 watts of power, yet you can't get a signal 10 foot from it when disarmed. Is the big killer on that. Let me just check something, guys. It's yeah, interesting. Not a lot more can be said on it. Ah, yes, sorry, there's been a load of leaks. This week, I think DJI are releasing the Flip. There's a website gone up with a bunch of info on it. The weirdest drone to come from DJI all of the time. There's a load of info on this thing. This is what's set to release this week from DJI, apparently. Oh, that abomination. It's a bit of a weird one. I do agree with you. Not really sure what to make of this. I really still don't know. I just don't know what to make of it. It's a large Neo. Yeah, basically it's a large... There's a load of stuff not in English, but there's a load of specs there. I think it's basically like... flying spokes. It's a bit weird. I will not be doing an unboxing or a teardown of this. Just don't worry. Am I in Scotland? Absolutely not. Right, I need to prep. If you've got any questions, put it in the chat and I will answer it shortly. I've got one last subject I need to cover, which I'm not ready for, if I'm honest. I need to find it. One last subject I need to cover. Now I just need to find where I've put it. Wi-Fi derived. Open this in the browser. Here we go. Now, this is... Let me just get myself right. What is going on OBS? There we go. Sorry, I couldn't see my screen. So, this is a screenshot that was shared, and this is, I think, a bit of just a comment from Raphael. I don't know how to say his name. Rapper, I can't say it. Raphael, whatever we want to say. That there's basically been an understanding, and let me make that bigger because you probably can't see it. We hereby inform you that all misunderstandings between OpenHD project and OpenIPC community have been removed. All mutual claims are now considered invalid. All options and ways of developing future cooperation have been discussed. Plans have been outlined. Together, we will achieve more. Thank you all, OpenHD IPC. So, basically, the beef between OpenHD and IPC is over, which I think is great. It's good to see open source projects working together. Always good to see. Look, it helps everyone. There's not a lot more to say about it than that. I'm still doing my testing on the Wavern link. I'm having some strange issues I'm still trying to resolve, as I always am. I think it's all got a long way to go yet. if people want to get involved in a DIY project, it's definitely worth a look. There's some interesting stuff out there. The hardware design on Wavering is freaking horrific, just as bad as Runcam. Both of them. The single board is nice, but the dual board is just shocking. Again, no thought been put into actually making it a product. But look, this will all get settled over time. There are people who are getting great performance from OpenIPC. There are people who are struggling. That's the way it is with open source projects. That's the truth about it. What's really good is that all of the sort of past beef has been settled down, and you can sort of look at this as a bit of a growing of the projects, both of them. I don't know what it was. I think it'll benefit everyone in the end, but it is something worth discussing. Just catching down on the chat. Junior lives with Wales, thinks he's in Wales. I'm in Wales. Yes, I am. What are the chances I can make it to Australia for my 40th? That would be cool. I want to know what happens when you damage the props of the DJI Flip. Yeah. I'm guessing those rods all go round one way. If I would have thought what DJI would have done is they'll skate around. If I'm guessing, they'll be like that on the inside of the duct so they can move around the duct. If they can't, I don't know what the fuck you do. Someone just said, I'm on OpenIPC at 10.4 megabits a second. 10.4? Nice and exact. I don't see the same green smearing as some of the Caddx videos. I think the compression on the SS3Q is better. It's software. It's tunable. It's what are they doing? But yeah, that's interesting. Did your wife enjoy... Does the rainfall... Does it just rain all winter here? Pretty much. Do I think the N3 goggles will support O3 ear unit with a firmware update? That's a hard one to know. I don't know. I don't know what DJI will do. They could. Look, if you wanted my money, if they were going to do it, I think they would have done it with the drop on O4. I highly suspect no. If you want my honest opinion, I think if they were going to do it, they'd have done it now. Because why would they now? There's no benefit to them doing it now. There just isn't. Why do you want to make O3 work with it? We can sell you O4. Yeah, but we got loads of O3 ear units. Yeah, but I can sell you O4. We have the new shiny O4. Why would you not want O4? Why would you not want our new shiny product that works better? Yeah, but I've got loads of ear units. Yeah. But you need our new shiny O4. Yeah, but I've got like 7 of them. Yes, but we have the new shiny O4. Why do you not want the new shiny O4? What part are you not understanding? We have the new shiny O4. That's the position you're in now. Any questions? Please do put them down below. How are the N3s for you, Ian? They're not great fitment for me. They're not. The N3s are not. Look, they're okay for what they are, but they're not the best fitment for me. They're just not. Do the goggles 2 with O4 Pro have the video camera assist when being used with Log M? I don't know. I don't think they do, but I need to check that. I haven't looked into that in depth yet, but I will. Is it flyable with the added latency? Oh, it's absolutely flyable in normal conditions. It just seemed to spike. The latency was absolutely fine normally. Me being very slow and tentative was the wind and my spotter. What I was trying to do was have my person behind it that when I disarmed, they were able to catch it. That's what I was trying to do. because I didn't want it to hit the ground and break. You have to take into account those first couple of flights, right? The GoFilm 20 has really thin plastic ducts. I've got a broken duct on it already, which is staying in place. What I didn't want to do is do the first flight, fail safe, smash it on a rock, and not be able to finish the video. So the whole plan was me to go forward very slowly so my person could be basically behind it and try and grab it. That was the idea of the first 10 flights. Because if I'd have broke it on the first flights, I couldn't have finished the bloody video. And that was the problem. And then, once I'd finished the bit I needed to finish, I then just chucked it in acro and carried on with my life. But that's what I was trying to do. Because my luck is, I would have done the first flight, disarmed, hit a rock, broke the lens on the camera, or broke the duct, and I wouldn't have been able to fly. That was the problem. Do I know if the whip antenna on the light is just a normal whip antenna? I think so. I haven't cut into it to test. But I do need to put the antennas on the VNA. Why does DJI keep reducing the field of view from goggles 1 to goggles 2, now goggles 3? Probably user preference. I think the V2s is too wide. I love it, but it's too wide. The goggles 2 was too wide. You couldn't get it all in view. Goggles 3 is about perfect for the optics. The goggles V2 was lovely and clear, but too wide. No one could look at that full screen at once. You were always darting your eyes around, having to look at it. Do I think the new 04 Lite would be good for a ground vehicle? No, probably the Pro. You could do it, but you're going to need cooling. But you could absolutely mount some heat sinks on this. But it's going to need a fan. Can 04 Lite be made to fit in a small enough drone? It'll go in and... Look, people put 03 in a small enough drone. 04 Lite absolutely could. Do I think 04 Lite can go for a bigger field of view by software? No. If they could have, they would have. I suspect we're getting the full camera there. What is the latency of the Goggles 3 versus the N3? The latency on the Goggles 3 is lower. In race mode, 15 milliseconds. The Goggles 3 are on par with the Goggles 2 in 100 frames a second. Depending on DJI's mode, you're talking 26 to 32 milliseconds normally, or 15 milliseconds in race mode with 04. Do I think someone will make a decased version of the 04 Pro at the did 03? Unlikely. I think users will decase it, and I've already started looking at that. I don't think Flywoo. Flywoo might make a kit. Flywoo might make it. If anyone will, Flywoo will. There's already Axis Flying who've made a heatsink kit for the Lite, which I don't quite understand. I sort of get it. The camera bit might be a bit interesting. So Axis Flying have made this kit for the 04 Lite. So you've got a camera housing, a 14mm and a 20mm camera housing, but I'll be honest, I'd just 3D print something. Air unit CNC kit, or you can buy the 20mm component set. I'll probably order one of these in. There's a 13mm coax cable on there as well. There's a price on that. But to me, this is a bit like, why make your ear unit heavier and less portable? I might be being a bit old and grumpy on this, but why make it... It weighs 3 grams. I've done some latency tests on OpenIPC already. I published the numbers on that. I don't think they're in a video, but I published them. The numbers were fairly low. It was on par with 03. It was fine. Yeah, potentially for bashers who don't want to risk. I haven't seen MIPI cables announced, but I suspect we'll see them in the next few weeks. There's that one there, which is 15 centimeters. That's the only one I've seen. Also, why the 3 screw holes? You know, it's like, yeah. Right. I'm going to wrap this stream up there. I want to say a huge thank you to... you just tried to scroll my screen down. I want to say a huge thank you to all of the super chats tonight, everyone. There's a bit of a sort of questions answered video on 04 going up tomorrow. Pretty much talked about a lot of it tonight, but if you're interested in seeing it, do consider checking it out. I'm trying to get the Caddx video finished, and then I'm trying to get the once the Caddx video is done, I've got to get the Kiss Ultra video finished as well. They're in the list, as well as trying to get everything out. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Look after yourselves, stay safe. Please do consider checking out the link to FPV Wiki, where all of the 04 stuff is. Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, OnlyFans, and all of the usual. Look after yourself, stay safe. I'll speak to you soon.